Chapter 18. Dominic came running up to him and began pulling on his hand. "Come on, Col." Col was sweating as he was dragged towards the school gates. "You've fought it now," Denny sneered at him as he passed. Denny, once his best pal, was now wishing more trouble on him. Mr. Sampson wasn't even looking Col's way. He kept his back to him, studying the road intently. Col saw his headmaster emerge from the school building. He caught sight of Mr. Sampson. Col saw recognition on his face, then alarm as he saw Col heading towards him. Col had seen that look many times before, waiting for trouble, expecting it from the McCanns. Col could hardly listen to Dominic's chattering, only catching snatches of it. "My dad's got the car, wants you to go with him." Col's heart was bursting through his chest. "Wants me to go with him?" he thought. "Where?" To the police station, probably. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see his headmaster watching closely, waiting. And not just his eyes, the eyes of all the pupils in the playground. Mr. Sampson turned as Col approached. Col stopped dead. He was aware of all the eyes of the school turned towards him, from the playground, from the teachers, from windows, everyone. And suddenly, to his surprise, Mr. Sampson smiled. "Hello, Col. How are you?" Col couldn't answer. His mouth was dry. He was too surprised. He glanced quickly back into the playground. The tension there seemed to have dropped. The headmaster was still heading for his car, still darting quick glances towards the school gate, but he seemed more relaxed now. Col looked back at Mr. Sampson. "Why did you come here?" he asked, puzzled. Dominic answered, bouncing with enthusiasm as usual. "We're all going out for a meal. It's my mum's birthday. You're coming too. We've already phoned your mum. It's okay." He stopped for breath and Mr. Sampson smiled again. He manages to tell a whole story in 10 seconds, doesn't he? Cole still couldn't believe it. "You want me to go with you?" Mr. Sampson nodded. "If you'd like to. We'd like you to be there." They could have phoned to ask him, picked him up at the house, or he could have met them at the restaurant. There were plenty of alternatives to actually coming to the school to ask him. "But why did you come here?" Col asked again. But he knew why, even before Mr. Sampson answered. "Because we don't want anybody here at school, anywhere, thinking we blame you. We don't, Col." Dominic pulled at his sleeve. "You're going to come, right? Because I'm not going if you're not coming." It wasn't going to be easy spending time with the Sampsons, knowing what Mungo had done. But if they could suffer him, he would do it. It was the least he could do. "I'd like to come," Col said softly, "if you're sure." Dominic had no doubts. "Of course we're sure." "We'll pick you up about 7, Mr. Sampson said. "No," Col said it too quickly, but he couldn't have the Sampsons sitting in the car outside his house and Mungo inside. Col in the middle of it all. "No," he took a deep breath. "I'll meet you at the restaurant if that's okay." Mr. Sampson didn't object, so it was decided, and Col wasn't sure if he was doing the right thing or not. It had begun to rain by the time he got home, and the rain became a storm as the afternoon darkened. He had thought Mam would have objected to his going. She might pretend she didn't suspect Mungo, but Col knew she was just as aware as he was of Mungo's guilt. Of course, he soon found out why. Mungo hadn't been in all day. He didn't know a thing about it. "And there's no need to tell him when you've been," she said, as she stood ironing Col's shirt. "I did try to say no, Mam," he said. She smiled. "I know, son. It's awful hard to say no to that wee Dominic, innit?" Col took a bus into town, but even on the short dash to the restaurant, he was soaked by the time he got there. Dominic was waiting for him in the doorway. "We should have picked you up." He dragged them in out of the rain. "We've got a great table. Come on." This was the part he'd been dreading. Walking towards that table to face Mrs. Sampson. Yet already she was standing, moving forward to greet her. Already she was smiling. How could she do that? She must know Mungo was the main suspect. The police would have told her that. The answer was tugging at Coll's sleeve. Dominic. "Come and sit by me, Coll," she said. "Take off that wet jacket." She called a waiter over and asked him to hang the jacket up somewhere so it would dry. "How are you, Mrs. Sampson?" She didn't get a chance to answer Coll's question. Ella did that. "Oh, she's just wonderful. Half her furniture's destroyed and the other half's been stolen. She's just wonderful." Then she sneered at him. "Moron." "Ella," her mother warned, "be quiet." Ella wanted to say more, spit out all the venom she'd been building up since the burglary, but her mother wouldn't let her. "This is my birthday. I want to forget for a while. Have a nice meal. Just enjoy ourselves." It was the hardest 2 hours of Coll's life. They couldn't talk about London. London a million years away now. It reminded everyone of what they come home to. I shouldn't have come, Coll thought again and again. Yet if they were willing to sit through this, how could he have refused? They wanted to show the world they trusted him. If he could force Mungo to give everything back, he would. But even giving everything back wouldn't make it right. Too much had been destroyed. Ella got her chance to confront him when her mother went off to the ladies' room and Mr. Sampson was paying the bill. "I don't know how you had the nerve to come here, Coll McCann, after what you did." "Coll didn't do anything," Dominic almost shouted. "I'm going to tell Dad you said that." "Shut up." Ella said it so fiercely, Dominic did. "I won't get a chance to talk to you again. I hope I never set eyes on you, but I just want you to know how much I hate you. Why can't you admit it was your brother? How could you do these things? We've only ever been nice to you and your horrible family." "It wasn't Mungo." Coll didn't sound convincing, even to himself. "You know it was him. Just admit that. That's all I'm asking, and maybe then I wouldn't hate you so much." She glared at him, her teeth clenched tight. "Just say it." There were tears in her eyes, tears of anger. Coll couldn't hold that tearful, angry gaze. "It wasn't him," was all he could say. She pushed her chair back, threw her napkin on the table and stormed off. "She doesn't like you, Coll." Dominic said it so innocently that Coll almost smiled. "But she's the only one. My mum and Dad think you're brilliant, and you're still my hero." He wasn't anybody's hero, Coll thought bitterly. Maybe he never had been. Mr. Sampson got him a taxi home, and as he watched them through the driving range, he wondered if this really was the last time he was going to see them. The storm was growing worse by the minute, rain bouncing off the pavements, and every few minutes the sky was lit up by the lightning. The wildest storm he had seen in a long time. But there was even more of a storm waiting for him when he got home.